In this video, I will be giving a short introduction to the meaning of the word globalization and some examples, as well as going through the three main theories: the hyperglobalist approach, the skeptics theory, and the transformationist approach. The word globalization gained momentum in the late 90s and has become increasingly popular since then. Lechner 2009 describes globalization in his book, The Making of World Sociology. He describes how globalization is creating a new framework for social life, making new definitions of what social life actually is. In modern times, this can be seen through the use of social media and the interdependence of countries on each other because of the global economy. It's hard to look at globalization without also looking towards capitalism. Marxism is the foundation for the majority of negative views regarding globalization. Nolan 2008 said, and I quote, "Since ancient times, the exercise of individual freedom has been inseparable from the expansion of the market driven by the search for profit. With globalization allowing for more communication between people and countries, politics has become increasingly more intertwined, as well as capitalism." Nolan states that this furthers global inequality, for example, differences between the global south and the global north. As well as this, Nolan 2008 outlines that competitive markets are at the heart of capitalism, with globalization making the borders between countries less important, which increases trade, and with this increase in trade, competition increases, causing exploitation. Watson 2001 discussed the neoliberalist approach towards globalization. Neoliberalists encourage globalization due to the encouragement of the use of the free market, where countries would globally compete with each other, causing and trying to gain foreign investments, trying to find the lowest production cost. This can be seen in modern times, where companies set up factories abroad where wages and materials are lower to increase their profit margins. For example, countries like Zara and Primark. There are three main theories of globalization. Panelist 2017 identifies them as skeptics, hyperglobalists, and transformationists. Albro 1996 is one of the key hyperglobalist thinkers. He takes a very positive view of the world, talking about how globalization allows humanity to become closer. He views globalization as the opportunity that people have to interact with the world. Albro looks at globalization through history, with a particular focus on capitalism, so he looks mainly at economic globalization. Albro argues that because globalization has become more important, this allows markets to work more freely on an international scale, therefore having a knock-on effect on the nation-state of the individual countries, meaning they have less power. Hyperglobalists look at big corporations which have become worldwide names, for example, McDonald's and Coca-Cola. Ritzer 2021 looks at how these companies have spread across the world, at the so-called Americanization of the world. One example that Ritzer focuses on is the modern American family, with two wage earners who have no time to cook, who then eat TV dinners. As time goes on, the TV dinner isn't convenient enough, so they go with fast food, with them having to go in and wait for it. Then the introduction of drive-thrus, so nobody has to get out of the car. And now, being able to order food to your door so that you don't even have to leave the house. Ritzer looks at all the areas involved in this food production: the farms, the factory workers, the fast food workers, and the delivery drivers who have to complete their job at the maximum efficiency to ensure consumers don't have to wait. All these areas are interdependent on each other. Without one, the other one won't work. This interconnectivity can be seen globally. Another theory is a theory of the skeptics, a direct criticism of the hyperglobalist account. One of the main thinkers for the skeptics approach are Hurst and Thompson, 1996. They argue against the hyperglobalist ideas that the nation-state has lost its importance and people and things have free movement across the globe. They say that the nation-state have a big influence in the economy and in international processes, for example, the United Nations, and which countries get nuclear weapons. Martel 2010, in his book The Sociology of Globalization, states that globalization is not as developed as it looks. One of the reasons why is due to the remaining inequalities between countries, how some countries are still more powerful than others. He uses Europe and North America as examples. This unfairness can be seen in which countries play a bigger role in the United Nations and which countries have veto power. Another hyperglobalist idea that the skeptics disagree with is the idea that people have free movement across the globe. Hurst and Thompson argue that despite new methods of communication between people, like the internet and social media, that the nation-state has less control over in most cases. The nation-state still has control over the population of its country. They still control who can come in and out of countries to a degree. For example, who can get a passport and who can get visas. Hurst and Thompson argue that the state's control over its land and territory and who has access is something which can never be global. The final theory of globalization is a combination of both previous theories. One key thinker in the transformationist approach is Howard 1999, who takes the view that globalization is not what it once was. Howard takes some of the skeptics' concerns regarding the hyperglobalist approach. He acknowledges that the nation-state still plays a role in society. However, democracy is changing, and this change will encompass more of the globe. Martel, 2010, summarizes Howard's arguments, where he states that the transformationists have an open-ended view of globalization, where it is constantly changing and developing over time, and differencing between groups of people with different characteristics, like races and class. Overall, transformationists believe that globalization is complicated, and it does not have just one definition, and one process should not be used to describe all of globalization, for example, solely looking at capitalism. In the videos below, we will go into detail about specific areas of globalization, looking into migration and globalization and consumption, and the involvement of soft power.